Welcome to Animation for All. My name is Nathan Adams. I am your host. This program is presented to you by Shamble Studio. Welcome to today's episode, everyone. Today we're going to put this star object into an array. And this array that we're going to do is going to involve two curves. The first curve will be one that's just like this star. The second will be a path that we draw with a grease pencil. So, let's get to it. We're in Blender 2.63 version, and the first thing that we'll do is that we are going to take this star object and duplicate it. So let's get Shift D, escape there so it's in the same spot. Let's tab into our edit mode, and then let's turn it on to wireframe so we can see what we're doing. So press Z, and there we go. Okay, so we have the solid geometry right here. We're going to take this middle vertex, and let's press X, and let's delete that vertex right there. And now we just have these outside vertices left over. Now we're going to take all those vertices by pressing A to select all, S to scale, and we're going to scale it up about, well, let's do 20 here, okay? And there we go. So now we should have this nice big star. Alright, there we go. And I'm in camera view, you might see. So I'm going to select this camera and I'm going to do Z. I'm sorry, that was for shading. Okay, I'm going to press G to grab the camera, and then I'm going to press Z twice so I get the local Z axis. And there we go. Zoom in on this a little bit more. I'm going to do this again, G, Z, Z. Okay, there we go. And now, this object you may notice has a little bit of thickness to it. If we were to press Z right now, okay, we're not going to worry about that. Right now we have a solidify modifier in it. So we need to get it off. So press X. Now we just have this mesh outline left over, and we want to convert it to a path. So we'll press Alt C. Curve from mesh / text is what we want to do. And now we're going to change the name of this from star.001 to star_path. That way we'll keep ourselves organized. Let's press Control C by hovering over that, and then go into our object, Control V. Now we have matching object data and object. And now, next thing that we will do is we will make this follow this path that we have just set up. So let's go into our modifiers, which is the little wrench icon. I'm going to collapse this so we can see things a little bit better. And the first one we'll do is array. Now right now we have it on fixed count. We want to change that from fixed count to fit curve. And our curve that we want to choose is star_path. Now I have a straight line that actually fits the length of this path. But what we want to do is we want it to follow it. So let's collapse that. We're going to add another one. And this one is going to be curve. Same object, star_path. Now you'll notice that the deformation of this is kind of funky looking. You know, you have them nice and warped here. We don't want that, do we? No, what we want to do is we want to make sure that these look pretty even for the most part as they're going through the path. There's going to be some bending at the tips. That's just part of the nature of the beast there. What we're going to do is let's tab in to our edit mode, and we have a total of 10 vertices here. So these vertices go here, 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 here. They're all basically at the ends of these points here. So we're going to subdivide this by pressing W, subdivide, and now you'll start to see that these stars are evening out a little bit better as far as their shape is going. They're not warping quite as much. So let's do that again. Looking a little better. Okay. And I think I'm going to stop right there. And let's tab out of our edit mode. And you know, what we're going to do is we're going to modify this so that we have a different spacing on here. Because right now it is at an absolute 1 spacing. Or actually, I should say it's a relative 1 spacing on the array modifier. So let's change it to something like 4 and see what happens. Now we have a little farther spacing. And with that farther spacing, now we can play around with it a little bit. It's not quite so crowded. So this is just to give you an idea of what the spacing looks like at different numbers. There's a spacing of 2, spacing of 8. You get the idea. So now with that spacing, what we'll do is we're going to create a couple of shape keys just to demonstrate when we resize this path, what happens to these stars, and how we can appropriately space this. So let's go into our curve data here. And we're going to add 2 shape keys. There's our basis and key 1. And on key 1, we're going to scale this star way down. Alright, and let's scale it down to 0.1, actually 0.025. We'll do that. Alright, and now the basis is still at this original size, but when we go to key 1, when we increase the value, you'll see it start to shrink. Like so. Now with this shape key, we can also key it up so that it starts out, say, at a value of 1 on frame 1. Right now we're on 49. I don't know why I had that still on 49. We'll do shift, left arrow. Okay. And we'll start out at a value of 1 on this key. Now to shrink it down, press I. And then we'll go to frame 49. So we'll skip ahead all the way to 49, and that'll give us 2 seconds of animation, 2 seconds worth of time where this star can grow from the size of what it currently is on frame 1 to frame 49 in a frame of 2 seconds time. Okay, so there we go. Press I, shift, left arrow, and then let's do Alt A just to give us an idea. There we go. Alright, and there we have an animation of the path growing, and then you'll see that the stars are moving along the path as we're going through this animation. But let's say we don't exactly want that spacing to remain constant. Easily enough remedied. First thing we do is we have a keyframe at the spacing of, let's say, 4 right now. And go into our modifier, or rather 8 is what we have it currently set at. So we'll insert a keyframe by pressing I, and then we'll go all the way up to frame 49. And on frame 49, we're going to set it to 1. And then we'll press I again. And then we'll do Shift, left arrow key. And then let's press Alt A to see what our results are like. And now you'll see that we have this star array that populates all this duration and gives you a nice little animated effect. So with that, we're going to stop this segment, and then I'm going to show you how to make the second array, or the second curve that it will follow. Alright, now on to the next part. We're going to do another path that this is going to follow, this star object that's been arrayed around a star path. So if we just go through our frames, you'll see our expanded version looks pretty great, right? Well, now we're going to make it even greater. So what we're going to do is go to our front view by getting numpad 1. And then we're going to use our grease pencil to draw a new curve. To do that, we're going to hold down our D key, and then with our mouse or our drawing tablet, that's what I'm using right now, make this path. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something to demonstrate the point. What we'll do is we'll convert this layer to a path. And if we select our star object, we delete that grease pencil layer that we just did, and then we just have this path left over. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup before we begin this, so that we don't have so many points on our path. And I'm going to simply, with all these points selected, deselect one of these points and then reselect it. And then I'm going to get the space bar and type NTH for select nth. And now you'll see with our nth selection it says 2. That means it selects every other point. We're going to hit X, select. Now you'll notice if I just do select all and then do that nth selection, it says curve hasn't got active point. So there is a reason why I deselected and reselected one of these points. This is necessary so that the base of this selection can be determined by Blender. So now that when we do the select nth, everything from this point onward is selected. X, select. I'm going to do this one more time. Hit A, Shift, deselect, reselect, select nth, X. I like that now. So let's tab out of edit mode. So now we're back into our object mode. We have GP underscore layer as our curve object that we're going to use. So now, if we use this star object, it does need to be the star, not the path. Let's add modifiers array and curve. And now we'll go from fixed count to fit curve once again. Curve GP underscore layer is the one that we'd made. Let's do that one. And you'll notice it has the two star arrays side by side. We want them actually stacked, go in the other direction. So we change it from this 0, and I'm going to go with a value of say 8. This may take a moment. There we go. Pretty dense. I don't think we want it that dense. So let's take it to a bigger value. Let's say 20. Not quite as dense. but it definitely still has a lot that it's doing. So I'm going to take it to a much higher value, which should also reduce the count by 5. So I'll take it to 100. That's reducing the count by 5. There we go. Next thing we'll do, this object now needs to follow the curve. So we'll get GP layer, and once again, instead of using the x-axis for our deformation, we will use the z-axis. Much better. I'm actually going to increase the size of this by doing tab, selecting all, and then scaling upward. There we go. That way we get some nice spacing between each of these star array objects. And now that we have that set up, let's animate this path. So let's go to our curve data, add 2 shape keys. This one will be our basis, and then key 1, we'll just tab into that, and we're going to really reduce this for key 1. And we're going to get this to almost a 0 value, just like the other one. There we go. I'm going to take it down a little bit more. There. And now with this frame 49, I want to keep this value at 0 so we get our final. Press I to insert a keyframe, and then shift left arrow. Now we'll go to 1, I to insert keyframe. Now we can animate this out. So if we just start scrolling through, you'll start to see this really cool effect of these stars basically multiplying. There we go. And now our final step, animating the number that's going to come into this. So as we did before, I'm going to go into my array once again. There we go. So our spacing we have at 100. To make it less dense, go back to frame, so I'll keep it at frame 49 for a moment. I'll hit I to insert a value, then frame 1. I'm going to put it at 800. Insert keyframe there by pressing I. And now, if we scroll through, then we start to see it populating the same way as what we did with this star. And there we go. So now we have this nice animated array of objects. We can go into our camera view and see what it looks like from there. A lot of stuff, isn't it? Let's go back to frame 1, and then we can see just by clicking through and then we can pull this camera up pressing G, Z, Z, G, Z, Z. Notice it's starting to fade out, so we're going to take our camera limits from end 1000 to end 10,000. So that's for the view there. Let's do the same. Here we go. 10,000. There we go. G, Z, Z, just a little bit more. There we go. Now we have our full camera view where we can see all of this happening. So there we go, and go frame 1 again. Let's see how this happens. All right. And I think I am satisfied with these results. So now we have this animated array that we can render out, and I will give you the final render result. And then we should be good with this. So in conclusion, what we want to do is we have the two arrays. So we discussed how to make one on a flat plane and then how to do an extruded path array. And with these two objects taken care of, then we get this really beautifully animated array of objects of stars. And the last thing I have to say is, if you want to go to our show notes, for those of you who are watching from YouTube or some other source, what we have is we have our show notes at shembol.blogspot.com. You can follow a link below that I have provided. And then you can also get the source file from this same page so that you can follow along with this tutorial. If you have any questions or feedback, let me know by going to shembol.blogspot.com, or you can also comment on YouTube or any other place where you're currently watching this. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and in a moment you'll be able to see the finished result. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Thank you for watching Animation for All. This has been a production from Shembol Studio. For more information, go to shembol.blogspot.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter.